This is Bloomberg Crypto, a daily Bloomberg iHeart podcast.
And I'm Mike Regan, in today for Stacy-Marie Ishmael. It's Thursday, January 5th. In the days leading up to the staggering collapse of FTX, a war of tweets broke out between two top crypto executives. Former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried and Binance CEO Changpeng Zhao, or CZ as he's commonly called, are known rivals. And just one example of their different styles. Bankman-Fried appeared eager to work with the government regulators and lawmakers, while CZ, not so much. But when CZ tweeted that he was selling Binance's holdings of crypto tokens that were created by FTX, it sparked a run on the exchange that ultimately led to the insolvency of FTX. The idea that a once flush crypto exchange worth billions of dollars could be taken down by a series of tweets, well, it raises a lot of questions about the crypto market. And it fuels the perception that the digital asset industry is led by alpha males caught up in a hyper-masculine culture. But now that one of the most renowned CEOs finds himself facing a slew of criminal charges and civil actions, what's at stake for the industry? And what does it say about the leaders who run it, or the future of the crypto community at large? My colleague Vildana Heinrich joins me now.
They're not afraid to get into fights. They're not afraid to be on Twitter and say really outrageous things. And basically, that's what we've seen happen in crypto over the last 10 years or so.
Vildana, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. So, Vildana, one thing I find fascinating is, if you cover regular companies, non-crypto companies, there's Business Wire, PR Newswire. They have sort of official avenues to make an announcement. Not so much in crypto. It's basically all on Twitter.
Yeah, we have Twitter, yeah.
We have Twitter, which has its pluses and its minuses. But talk to us.
I think mostly minuses.
Mostly minuses. But talk a little bit about that idea of how important Twitter is to the crypto industry and how information is disseminated.
It's hugely important. I always say that a lot of crypto discourse happens on Twitter. So you have a lot of these big personalities that I'm sure we're going to be talking about who have huge followings on Twitter. They're there all day with their laser eyes, although a lot of them have actually removed their laser eyes as of late. And they're just basically posting anything that comes to mind. A lot of them have been known to just be tweeting all day, every day. I actually find a lot of ideas and great market stuff on Twitter because you can find just about anything. You can find these feuds that we're about to talk about, but also a lot of coverage about what's happening with the market and what people are seeing. Because as you say, there's no central place where we can get this type of information.
That's what I think is so fascinating. A crypto project that has an announcement to make, oh, we've got a new coin, or we're shutting down for maintenance, or hey, sorry, but we just blew up, all your money's gone. Twitter is the official sort of platform for them to release that news. But mixed in with all that is all this sort of other personal sort of bravado. Talk a little bit about the way crypto power players sort of communicate with each other on Twitter. It's all very nice and polite and cordial, right?
Oh, it's so nice. It's it's all rainbows and fairies and nice words. There's actually a lot of, I guess we can call it fighting or infighting between some of these CEOs and people who are at the helms of these different crypto companies. And like I said, they love to have huge followings. A lot of them do have huge followings. And they sort of just build these bases of supporters and followers on Twitter who like to come in defense of some of them. But I think a really good example of what you're talking about is the feud that we saw between Sam Bankman-Fried from FTX, the former CEO of FTX, and what happened with Binance's CZ, where for years people sort of watched them feud with each other via Twitter and sort of just throw barbs at each other, where you can even just, tweet about someone without having to tag them and your followers will know who exactly you're talking about. But they had a spat going on Twitter.
Oh, yeah, subtweeting, as they say.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a major crypto CEO who I think is a fraud. Yep. I'm not going to say who, but
you know who he is.
You may know who he is. rehash for the listeners how that feud sort of reached its climax and what it meant for FTX.
Well, it meant the downfall of FTX, really. Not to give the sort of the ending of the story.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. But both are huge names within crypto. They were even before any of this happened. CZ is at the helm of the largest crypto exchange in the world. FTX was one of the largest in the US. And so to have the two of them sparring was always going to be drawing headlines. But basically what happened was that Binance held a huge chunk, I think something like $2 or $3 billion worth of the FTX token, FTT. And what sparked all of this was CZ tweeting out that he was going to be offloading that investment that they were holding. And there was a lot of back and forth from FTX, where FTX had offered to buy it for, I forget what it was
like $22.
$22, yeah, exactly. At one point at FTT, the token had been trading above $80, I think in September of last year. And for market watchers, actually, for people who were seeing that on Twitter, they did not take that as a good sign that FTX was willing to do that. And from there, we sort of saw this rather quick unraveling of what happened with FTX, because then we had to have Binance say that they were going to help take FTX over, a deal that actually ended up falling through, which is something that the market foresaw, because we saw cryptocurrencies selling off when all of this was happening. So a lot of market participants and people who were watching what was going on between the two parties was that they just didn't have a lot of faith that this was actually going to play out in a good way.
And that token FTT played such a crucial role as collateral for the hedge fund that's sort of strapped to FTX, Alameda Research.
Yeah, exactly.
And CZ kind of, you would assume, knew what he was doing, perhaps by undermining faith in that token. That wasn't there a later tweet he said that it's better for a crypto project to fail early? You know, he kind of was hinting that he knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, this is the interesting thing, because, and we can think about this in a bunch of different ways in terms of, CoinDesk was the original news source of what sort of helped spark some of this, and what helped spark CZ saying that he was going to be offloading those FTT tokens. That obviously has had huge repercussions for the industry that CoinDesk covers. And then the same thing happening with Binance, where you're just seeing these huge repercussions that aren't exactly great for Binance either, because we just have this huge loss of faith in the system, reputational damages, people fleeing the market without any hopes that they are going to be coming back, especially from some of the retail investors. And so I think the repercussions I don't think it played out exactly as many had thought they might.
And we've learned so much since then. Obviously, the fraud charges, all the SEC, the CFTC complaints against Sam Bankman-Fried suggest that this company was a big mess, basically. This may or may not have happened eventually, but a tweet spat sure did accelerate things.
It sure did.
But I'm curious, as a man, maybe I'm not the best person to analyze sort of the crypto culture, because it does seem to me that it's this sort of bro culture, for lack of a better word, this kind of hyper masculine alpha male culture. I'm curious, as a woman covering this space, interacting with a lot of these guys, how do you perceive that culture?
Yeah, well, it's hard for me to say. Actually, maybe you are the better voice in terms of being able to say what exactly is going on. But you and I actually worked on a story about this together. And one of the people we spoke with called it blood sport. Basically, this is like a blood sport. What he said was, it's about not just winning, but vanquishing and winning at the expense of my opponents, which is basically what we saw happening, where people were trying to outdo each other. But in the process, ended up also hurting themselves. Yeah,
that was a great quote from Peter Atwater at William & Mary. Smart guy. He studies confidence and the role of confidence in finance, and maybe a little too much confidence from these guys. And I wonder about that idea of blood sport. Finance it's not like it's ever had a kind and gentle reputation, right? Wall Street bankers are not known for getting together and singing Kumbaya.
But it's daisies compared to what's going on in crypto.
Do you sense a big difference? It's much more aggressive in
crypto? For sure. The whole idea of crypto is that it's anti-establishment, that it's this new thing, a new innovation, new technologies, a new way to to pay and live and knew everything. Basically, like a financial revolution is what a lot of crypto people will tell you. And the type of people to help lead through that are young, brash. They're not afraid to get into fights. They're not afraid to be on Twitter and say really outrageous things. And basically, that's what we've seen happen in crypto over the last 10 years or so. If you compare traditional financial markets, they're not huge companies, but they're making names for themselves, sometimes thanks in part to what the founders are doing and saying on Twitter and in the public.
Yeah, I keep thinking of the hedge fund that really went after Do Kwon and the Terraform blockchain project earlier in the year. They sort of, on Twitter, liken themselves to the Romans sacking Carthage in the Punic Wars. So that blood sport idea really, it conjures up this image of sort of
gladiators.
Yeah. And there really is kind of that sort of mentality at play in a lot of these people involved.
Yeah, I think actually you and I had a quote also from Peter Atwater, and he said it's the modern day gladiators. These CEOs, they're perceiving themselves as disruptive warriors, is what Peter told us.
Coming up, more of my discussion with Vildana on what the biggest crypto rivalries mean for the industry. We'll be right back. Vildana, I also wanted to talk a little bit about sort of this image that Sam Bankman-Fried had cultivated. Not your average sort of Wall Street buttoned up, suit and tie, fleece vest type of guy, was he?
It's funny that we think of that as buttoned up when we're comparing
right.
it to Sam Bankman-Fried.
That's very formal, yes,
yeah.
yes.
So he was known for sort of having disheveled hair, for wearing sort of loose, baggy T-shirts, flip-flops, shorts. When we would see him actually go in front of Congress, a lot of people made a big deal about him wearing a suit or just wearing a button-down. But then they would zoom in on his shoes and the shoelaces would be all like totally messed up. Like he doesn't on a daily basis tie his shoes and had maybe forgotten how to do it. But yeah, that's the image he had. And now we know that that's the image he was trying to cultivate.
That's an interesting point, is that it very much fits in with sort of the counterculture outsider image of crypto, right? You don't want to look like a banker.
Right, absolutely. I remember this one story when things first started falling apart for FTX. I think one of the stories said something like he wanted to look like he was in his beanbag chair because he was very well known for like not having a regular sleeping schedule and just sleeping whenever he could on his beanbag chair, like in the office next to his computers where he was working or playing video games, where when he had investors coming in or anybody of importance coming in to, check out the FTX offices or check out what they were doing, that he wanted it to look like he was rolling out of the sleeping bag chair, like that he had been working so hard and out of nowhere you sort of like walk in and you catch him still like taking a mini nap or something.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what he wanted to be perceived as, where he told his employees, it's actually good for me to look like my hair is so disheveled.
Well, I kind of follow that strategy too myself. But if I slept in a beanbag chair, I would need a chiropractor.
But your hair looks exactly like his, yeah. No, it doesn't. At least you brushed it. You brushed yours today.
I'm curious how you're thinking about sort of the legacy of all of this, the culture of Twitter, its future, the sort of widespread suspicion and anxiety that exists now because of what happened with FTX. It seems to me that things have changed forever in this industry, that everyone's going to be second guessing sort of this notion of, oh, here's this quirky outsider sleeping in a beanbag chair. You think that's fair to say?
And you and I had a great story about this as well.
We've had a lot of good stories.
If I can pat us on the back. What we started to see pretty much over the summer, I would say, or late summer, was a huge wave of people leaving CEO roles at crypto companies. So founders and people who had sort of built names for themselves within the space, leaving, their CEO roles at those companies. And
some more sort of buttoned up types taking their place.
So that buttoned up types could take over. I think we had some really great quotes from that story as well. One of them said, some founders could be moving on because the industry is getting more professional and they come from an era where it was more tin hat. where the crypto people were more tin hat, basically. And you have more traditional finance types moving in to help clean up the mess.
So I wonder, is crypto just going to be sort of joined at the hip to this kind of masculine, alpha male, tough guy, sort of leader of the pack image? Or do you think this will change things? Is there more room for sort of a more reasonable, mild-mannered type of leader in crypto now?
It's possible. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what actually happens in terms of all of what we're seeing in the wake of FTX's collapse. A lot of people are saying that we're definitely going to be seeing more regulation. So if that's the case, it's possible that you have sort of more serious types coming in. The new CEO of FTX, who I think led Enron through its troubles in the early 2000s, John J. Ray, he is building this image of himself of being a super studious and serious person and coming out and talking about some of the things that he had unearthed over the last couple of weeks in terms of what had been happening at FTX. So it's possible that we do start to see more people like that coming in and, like I said, sort of clean up the mess.
Yeah. You think he sleeps in a beanbag chair?
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
No, definitely not.
Well, thank you, Vildana.
I think, Mike, you forgot the most important thing about this conversation.
What's that?
You and I host our own podcast.
I forgot about that.
How could you forget about that?
I forgot about that.
The highlight of my week every week.
Aw. Well, yes. And,
can I plug it?
Plug it. Plug away.
What goes
I'll
up?
allow it as guest host.
Thank you so much.
Until Stacy-Marie finds out, I'll allow it.
Yeah. No, I think she would be happy with this, too. I think she's a fan of ours as well. What goes up?
What goes up?
Yeah.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, you can find more of Vildana's reporting on the Bloomberg Terminal and on Bloomberg.com. For more, be sure to check out our twice-weekly newsletter, Bloomberg Crypto.
This is Bloomberg Crypto, a daily podcast from Bloomberg and iHeartRadio. For more shows from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Send us your comments, questions, or suggestions for the show to crypto@bloomberg.net. The supervising producer of Bloomberg Crypto is Vicky Vergolina. Our senior producer is Janet Babin. Our producers are Mohammed Farouk and Sharon Barrero. Our associate producers are Ty Butler and Moses Undum. Desta Wonderad is our engineer. Original music by Leo Sidran. I'm Stacy-Marie Ishmael. We'll be back tomorrow.